We'll call a meeting to order in accordance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act, Section 30-4-ADE, South Carolina Code 1987 as amended. All media in the immediate area have been notified of the date, time, location, and agenda of the meeting. We'll have our prayer by Mr. Govan, followed by our pledge by Mr. Reed.
Let's bow our heads. Father, it is again, God, that we come to say thank you. We thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us. We thank you, God, for allowing us to have a smooth opening for this year's school season. We ask, God, that you will allow us to host this meeting, and it will be used for your benefit and for the benefit of our citizens and children of this county. This we ask in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Continuing with the citizens' comments.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just the one?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me just read the guidelines for our public comment. The first 30 minutes of the monthly meeting will be set aside for 3-minute input sessions for citizen participation. Participation will be approved on a first come, first talk basis as reported on the log which is provided. Public input should be in the form of suggestions, information, or comments pertaining to programs, schools, or the school district. Based on legal advice of our counsel, comments should not be made, either complimentary or critical, naming any student, school employee, administrator, or board member, as these matters are personnel matters that require an executive session. Speakers' comments will be received as board information only. Ms. Dora Bacchus.
Good afternoon. I want to make this short and sweet. This is an old subject. It's about Rosenwald High School. And as I discovered Saturday, I'm not the only one. Rosenwald High School is being restored all over the counties. And it was in Saturday's paper. Our Rosenwald High School that I went to, both of them, one said standing and the other one be closed because I saw the land that you purposed. But I'm trying to get a committee together, if possible, if we can restore our school. It was given to us. I know the state took over and all the schools fall under Darlington County. But Rosenwald was a gift to all African America back in the day. And I am one that attended both of them. And I was out of the country when the part came up about purchasing our school. And when I returned, I was told what happened. But I would love, with the committee that I am trying to form, to, if we have to buy the property back and restore it to its beauty, like these schools on here, like this gentleman did, that is what we want. We want that for our history, because it was a gift to us. The only other issue I would like to have, I know I saw the land, but I thank Darlington High for all the students that you have. They deserve a brand new high school. I understand you're building a brand new hospital first, but I think Darlington High need a brand new high school. Because a school that is so close to the center of this city, it allows too many things to happen. The drug dealers and everyone else can get to it too fast. There's no way for our kids to run and hide. I don't have any children here now. My children is going on with their careers. But the other children here, I think they deserve a better high school. The state of the other countries have, cities have state-of-the-art high school. Why can't Darlington County? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bacchus. Our next regular board meeting, you know what we did? We Can we step back up and do the
Yep.
approval agenda? Can we get a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Jamie, you got here in time for that vote. Okay. Our next, regular board meeting will be, what is this, I can send it. Yeah, but this is for the minutes for the July meeting. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the last meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right. Next, board meeting will be, September the 11th at 6 o'clock here in the board meeting. Our next work session will be August the 28th at 6 o'clock here in the board training room. Strategic plan. Dr. Newman, I turn this one over to you.
Yep, so, Madam Chair, members of the board and members of our audience, as another item on the agenda is approval of the strategic plan that we've been working on for the past 8 months plus. We'll be starting out each board meeting with a focus on the focus areas and of course the mission statement. I've been talking a lot about the mission statement. Of course, it's to educate, empower, and prepare all for an ever-changing world. And those focus areas, we're going to be doing updates every month for those. Our principals are actually going to be working on this with us as well. And that's where we look at the areas of student success, staff excellence, community engagement, and our resources and examples of how that's looking in the schools across the district. And so principals are starting to pull that together. We've been busy for the first 2 weeks, but I did have one of our principals that had sent some examples for that, and so Dr. Thomas is with us for Lamar High School, so I do want to point out some of the items that they've worked on, and it's just so happened that he and I had a discussion earlier today, so I know my other principals have that same list as well that we get to talk about on Wednesday. But as far as student success, the sesquicentennial anniversary mural that was painted at Lamar High School has a lot of different historical items that are on there. And his students have actually did a lot of research about those historical items, and then that was parlayed into the plaque that you have put at the front of the school that's, again, acknowledging that particular anniversary. As far as staff excellence, you told me about your new AP US History certification with your teacher, Mr. Ammons, that you all are proud to have that class there in his certification. You talked about community engagement in your open house where you had 111 parent contacts and some good pictures of folks that were coming into the building. And then on resources and operations, your new bathroom remodels that we are having at the building, where I know you all are very encouraged to have those. So that's just one example of one school, but we'll have 20 of those each month that I'll be able to pick and choose and try to highlight some of the different schools as we go through the year, but primarily stay focused on the strategic plan and what we were looking at. Of course, the strategic plan also has the performance goals as well, so we'll be talking about that as we dig in as well. So that is my strategic plan focus area update for this month.
Quarterly, anybody have any questions, Dr. Newman?
I have one quick question. Can we get the 20, all 20, like in some way, or is that going to
We're
be?
organizing that as we speak.
Like once, yeah, like you said, monthly. I mean, I know you're going to pick and choose some to highlight, but if we could see all, then that would be wonderful.
We are getting that form put together, and so it's a pretty easy button for everybody to just pick one of those each month. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Dr. Newman, and I consistently say this, I think we need to highlight these events, these occurrences and events to the public, through the media. And I've said this before because we get beat up on because the only time that they really view anything that we do is when it's negative. And I think if we're gonna be successful in Darlington County, we've got to sell our program, and it's got to be known.
I would agree.
I agree.
Any other comments? All right, we'll move on to our quarterly reports. Any questions about those? The minority report, sole source, and emergency report. Any question about those? Or our budget report, which is our federal funds plus our regular yearly budget. Any questions for Liz? All right, that moves us on to our policy item IJOA-E, and this as it relates to field trips and nurses. I think we had some questions last time, and it looks like there's been some wordsmithing done. Can we get a motion to approve this new form?
Can I move to be approved to do?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? This looks like this one's gonna roll fairly easily.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It looks good. It looks good.
Looks good this round. All in favor? Opposed? Looks like if it passes this round. Brings us to our resolutions. We have a resolution on our 2023 GO bond, which is our general obligation bond.
Madam Chair, we again have uploaded that document. It's about a 50-page document on the GO bond resolution that we have for $9.5 million. Actually, Mr. Ziegler is supposed to be here with us tonight, but he had a meeting with the Florence City folks, and he was on his way here. He said he hoped to be here in time. I said this one could go quick, so you may see him pop in a few minutes, but he was here just to be able to answer any questions if the board had any. But this is our yearly annual GO bond that we sell for, and then we also pay off in a year's time. This is for all of our 8% projects that we've been talking about and working on for the past few meetings that we've all had discussions.
And this is all following off our facilities, our 2019 facilities plan. So
It is.
all these follow projects that are from that facility plan.
Yep, from the facility plan, and also any of the recent additions that we've had that we've discussed as well. So,
Make a motion to approve the 2023 GO bond.
Second.
All right, do we want to hold any discussion? Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Ziegler for when he gets here? Anybody have any?
Pretty much what we do every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this
Okay. All in favor?
is,
Opposed? Looks like that one passed. That moves us on to our 2023-2028 strategic plan.
again, Chair Hessler, members of the board, members of our audience, as I had mentioned earlier, we have finally crafted this document. Of course, it went from meetings that we had to where it's in a template form that the State Department requires us to put that in and some of the specifics. I had sent that document out to the board about 10 days ago, as a matter of fact, for the board to be able to take a look at. And again, it's a work in progress too. So it's not something that is just set in stone. We're allowed to modify it as we move along. 92 plus pages about what we're actually looking to do over the next 5 years in the school district. But there are performance goals that are associated with the different levels, whether it be high school, elementary and middle, or K2, as well as items about communication and our staff, what we're hoping to do to improve the quality of our staff as well. And then, of course, the resources piece that's in there. So hopefully the board members have had a chance to kind of look through that and get an opportunity to see some of the things that we've worked on over the past few months to get to where we are. And again, this is kind of that compass that should be guiding us. And whether it be board decisions that you're making or whether it be district office decisions that we're making, as well as the school renewal plans that our principals will use as well. So we have that in front of you for approval.
All right, can we get a motion on the table for approval?
Make the motion to approve.
Can we get a second?
Second.
All right, now we're opening for discussion.
Okay, so just curious, this is every 5 years, is that right? So where are we relative to the previous 5 years? So we do this and go through this motion every 5 years, and then we do another set, but where are we relative to the previous 5 years? And as I look through just some of the student achievement, some of something we've been complaining about, we continue to be behind the state, and I don't think the state is much to compare to, personally. I don't want to be behind, I don't want to compare to that, I want to be above that, but we're not even close. And so I'm just curious, I hate to be too critical of it, when I don't have the information about what were the goals in 5 years ago, so where are we relative to that? How bad did we miss those goals? And so we go through the motion exercise of continuing to set goals and nothing compared. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, so that former plan is still on the district website with the goals that are sitting on that. That was the first year that I walked in the door, that had been taken care of as far as it had already been passed by the board. And so we certainly could go back and review that. My plan is to do a year in review regardless for the district on a lot of the metrics that you've just brought up. Certainly can incorporate the 5-year strategic plan that was there as well.
You're right, you came in, that was approved. You didn't set it, the board did, supposedly. I mean, obviously, y'all really do it, we look at it, boilerplate, we stick it, we go with it. If we have questions, we do. But at the same time, I feel like, should we not have been at least looking at that? And where, and you're right, I don't look at this every 5 years, we look at that every year. You know, where are we relative? What's our progress to those goals? And again, I haven't seen anything in 5 years. So just.
And so, that's, Jamie, you bring up a good point, because we should be bringing this to you every year for, it should be reevaluated every year. How did we do this past year? Because with 5 years worth of goals, we should be having this discussion when we have the data, right, that's available. So for example, our testing data is still embargoed. We've had it for 2 months, but it's still embargoed at the state, so we're not allowed to publicly talk about it. But yeah, every year there should be a strategic plan update where we talk about those metrics for that particular year and where we fell in line with that.
If this is such a big deal, and we're spending an inordinate amount of time of our staff, our people, working on this. So if we did it 5 years ago, again, I fault our administration, a board, for not asking about where this was. And here it is again, let's go through this process, let's get all the committee members together and our students and teachers. So again, I would love to see it. I wish someone had been bringing this up annually. Whether you put it in place or not, it was already in place and should have been followed with, I guess.
Sure.
So as I look through it, I see some of your items have got cost associated with it.
Yep.
I apologize for coming in late. I did have a couple of questions on previous agenda items. For instance, our budget, we show like 12 million or so, excuse me, 12 million, I guess under budget. Is that correct? No? Over.
It looked like it's 12 million over, and I had the same question, Dr. Newman, you want to?
All right, so.
I only ask that, regardless if it is or isn't, so incorporate this into that. All these new figures, about 2 million from the general fund in this proposal, and 3.5. But now, I think it's going to make more sense, because if this is a reverse figure and we're 12 to the good, then we got plenty of money for that. So go ahead.
Right, so, back to the report, because I think that's what we were talking about, the report before, the budget report. I think the item you're referring to is a transfer of monies to the building program. Okay. And so that's where that number is coming in, because it's a transfer out. That's an accounting process that has to be done to be able to show.
Good. So we're not, because I hate to say it, but in the years past, we've actually been able to and move over.
Absolutely.
So that's all
So
that is.
that's just
That's just the expenditures.
Yep.
Right, okay.
That's not a net.
Yep.
That's just showing the $10 million that you transferred to.
Okay, relative
That's
to
just-
budget and why that is because it was transferred out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess I'll have to wait for board member input to ask the other question. But anyway, so I guess go back to the $3.5 million ESSER funds
Yep,
approximately.
that you see,
got.
right,
Isn't that coming to an end?
it will.
So
Uh,
is it not now? It's 2024. When is it?
Another year.
September.
So we have to include it.
2024.
We got plenty of ESSER, I see
Yeah,
that.
yeah, so
That
we gotta
answers
be able
my
to
question
include it,
about the $3.5 million, we got plenty. We're
Yeah.
good there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll ask the
Can I
other
ask-
question when we get to board member input.
Okay.
I was just gonna, on that same note though, it does end in September 2024, that ESSER money. And I know it specifically calls out in the strategic plan in multiple places that we need to be able to continue funding certain things that are being funded by ESSER. What are our plans to try to work through that? I mean, do we have a committee? Are we gonna try to work as a board? Do we need to form a committee? What are we gonna do to be able to find that money?
Yes.
To be able to continue those?
Well, I think that's a discussion that has to start early.
Right, it needs to
Because
start
that's-
soon, because that's only a year from now
That's
that
right.
dries up.
And so.
And you'll need to know before then, because the school year will start.
That's right. So where we would normally, start the budget conversations, in February or March, I think the reality is we have to start other conversations sooner than that because, again, the ESSER monies were put in place for a reason, and they were put in place temporarily. And so we know that, a lot of the functions that are being served with ESSER are temporary. And so, what does that look like for the district as we move forward? There are some of the things that we did have in place that we were using Title I monies for example, that we just were able to do more of with ESSER monies. So there are some functions that were there before. But I think the reality is that we don't want to get to the last minute on a budget and have this discussion, right? We
Exactly.
don't want to have this discussion in June and not have a plan, so.
I mean, we probably need to start
It's soon.
now, soon.
Yeah.
I mean, to be
It
able to
is.
start looking at this year
It
and
is.
figuring out what are the things that we can
Mm.
cut back on, because there are specific things, in this strategic plan that we're committing to that will need to be funded that aren't, they're being funded by ESSER now. So I really would like to see us, I don't know if as a board we need to have a committee or how we need to think about structuring that, but
Yeah.
I would like to see us, I want to be able to, if I vote on this and, and
Yeah.
then I want to be able to commit to it and say that we're going to do it, and that's a little tricky there, so.
And again, further on the report itself, again, it looks like it shows, real clear, what our needs are, what we need to do, where we need to work, but we've also known this, but it seems like it's showing the career readiness exceeds the college readiness, which again, in my opinion, I'm fine with that. That shows that we're excelling
Yes.
in that area, which
Yep.
I attribute, I guess, to our school, and it's getting populated, and it's got a demand for it. That's wonderful. But it also shows clearly where we are failing.
Yeah.
Okay. Meaning performing less, I guess.
Performing less, yes.
With your college readiness. So again, it's just something, I don't think annually, more often than that, there's a lot, this is what we're about. Performance, academic performance, what we're doing for the students, and just to kick it up every 5 years, I don't even like the annual thing. I really like to see it more often than that and see where we are, if that makes
Can I
sense.
make one more comment? Sorry. One is, I was on the committee for this strategic plan this year, and I'm new to this, so I don't know what to compare it to exactly, but it wasn't a boilerplate process. I feel like what you did, I don't know, it seemed like it was a new process that you brought in with the consultant and the committee with community members and like a large committee of people. That was new
Yes.
for the district? Okay, that was my impression. So you took this to another level, and I think that's where, he's having a lot of employees spend a lot of time on this because he wants it to be. And that's what not just you, we all want it to be, right? The committee wanted it to be something that's useful and referenced, and that every employee in the district can find something in here that they're impacting. And on that note, just one other side thing is that, and I mentioned this to Dr. Newman already, but the student success piece is very academic achievement focused, and one of the things the committee wanted to do, and I think we will hopefully incorporate over time, is more about student success than just academic achievement, but that career readiness piece, our business internships, I mean, you can put athletics in as student success. You can put, there's all sorts of things that contribute to student success and the life skills that we're helping them build and everything else. So I would like to see that student success piece built out more well-rounded. I think it does really point out the academic achievement places that we need to work on, but it doesn't highlight the other things that we're doing really well. So I would like to make sure that we incorporate those things into the plan. And it can get other employees throughout the district, help them recognize how they're contributing to student success. It's not just all about academic achievement. And I do like that the career piece is looking pretty good, right? And we can, and you're doing a lot to do that better. So I think we, we need to make sure we're highlighting those as well.
Well, we should celebrate the wins, and we should recognize the challenges. And I think the strategic plan does that. I don't think that it's holding any punches back on where we stand. But it's also highlighting some areas that we are doing well in. And again, Jamie, to your point, this is a living document, where it's been pretty static in the past. It's a living document. And it's not just 1 year, it's ongoing. Just like the ESSER conversation, that's something that's not gonna happen in a year from now.
Right, and again, I've served on this a couple of times before, over the years, and they did a great job.
Yeah.
Tons of work put into it. The staff, community, everybody, every year, every 5 years, they go through the same thing. I'm sure you had a great program, and they put a lot of energy and effort in it, but it's what you do with it.
Right.
And I'm just saying, we've gone through this motion. I didn't volunteer to serve on this time, but I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I've been through it. It's another formality. I don't want a formality. And so, and rightfully so, for the last 5 years, what have we done with what was done? So if you were to leave, this doesn't just get shoved on the counter, it's got to be followed up
It
with.
has to be a living document that is
The
our
board has
compass.
adopted, it is the board's responsibility.
Yep, it should be our compass. It should be. So,
I think having your monthly updates centered around it is going to be helpful for us with that as well, to make sure we stay focused on it.
Here's the piece that I struggle with, is the performance goals. And you've got these under SMART goals, which are attainable. But sometimes, to me, the goals are so low to obtain, they're not aspirational. I mean, prime example, I look at our 3.8 student achievement scores in math. And it looks, first of all, it should be say in 2028, but it says 2027. But it goes that our third grade should be at 54%, our fourth grade at 40%, our fifth grade at 41%, our sixth grade at 42%, 37% for our seventh grade, and 38%. That's, meet or exceed. And I just find it difficult to accept that we're going to accept a 38% pass rate, basically. I mean, that's just.
That was my
I mean,
issue as well.
I just struggle with adopting something that is not aspirational. That this is failure. I mean, we're
I know you
basically
want to
accepting
obtain it.
failure.
I'm with you. You can't be ridiculous and have expectations of
No,
something that's
I mean, we're not-
unrealistic.
you can't say
Have
we're gonna do
realistic
nothing.
goals, but is that, and like aspirational, are we really striving? It's like, I remember umpteen years ago, Dr. Knight said, what are we striving for to be average? That was what it was with No Child Left Behind. That's a goal? You're kidding me. And when I read through this and saw the 41 and 38 and 40, I went, ooh, I mean, that just makes you just cringe as to what's our goal here, what's our job? So again, understanding it's a balance between being realistic and obtainable, if that makes sense.
It does, and I think if you look at the times that we've been in over the past few years, I mean, in normal times, whatever that is, but in the past, a 3% gain in math or ELA was difficult to do. It doesn't seem like much, but I'll be honest with you, in times past, when we weren't dealing with what we've dealt with in the past few years, that 3% was a good gain. In this state, that was a good gain for the state. So, but we're in very different times now.
But over 5 years,
so I've had a chance, like the past couple years, we've had much significantly higher gains than just 3%, right? But you gotta have a start, you gotta be realistic about where you are. Where are you today? That's where you gotta start with. And then where are you going from there? So, you know, again, part of this is the way the state lays this out. Every district has to do this strategic plan, and it's laid out a specific way, and it's in a portal where you have to input everything. So, you know, we are constrained a little bit, but as far as aspiration, I don't think anybody in this room is satisfied with anything that our students accomplished. No matter how great that might have been, we want to do better. Some years that may be 3%. Some years that may be 10%. But whatever's realistic is what we have to focus on. I think we got to be careful about saying this number looks too low compared to what?
I still struggle with, two things. We're accepting that 62% of our kids will not meet in 5 years. 5 years from now, you're saying 62% of our children will not meet standards.
Based on where we are today.
Based on where we are today. And then you're also saying we are accepting that over time, from 3rd grade to 8th grade, that we are accepting this decline in, that we were okay to go from 54% to 38%. That 54% pass in 3rd grade, but only 38% meet or exceed in
Because I think
8th grade.
if you look at the state, that's the reality that we're dealing with, not just us, but across the state, across the nation. You'll look at those metrics change as the students get
But I just
older.
feel like when we sign our names to this and we vote off on this, we are saying we accept this. And I just would like for, what are the consequences statewide for not attaining this strategic, not meeting the goals of the strategic plan?
I don't think there's any.
There's no teeth to it.
No.
So why can we not be more aspirational?
So I don't disagree, but at the same time, what I'm saying is you have to be realistic. There's nobody that wouldn't want to double or triple what we're looking at. And that is the message that we're always working on in our buildings. So you have to set something that's in place, that's realistic, based on whatever normal times look like too. We're not in that, you know, we may be in that a year from now, 2 years from
Where
now.
were we 4 years ago or 5 years ago?
As far as,
Relative to state averages, same measurements, same metrics used.
so the first year that I was here, we had gained on the state average. The second year I was here, we didn't test because of COVID. The third year, we went down. The fourth year, we gained. And then this past year, we've gained again, so.
So I would think with all of the millions of dollars we've received in ESSER funds, again, not our fault, I'm not a big fan of that, how they force it on you in a certain time limit, you can't even hire people to do what they need to do for it. But, again, all this money, if we spend it, I would certainly think we would see exponential gains, relatively speaking, from where we were pre-COVID, if that makes sense, or COVID, immediately after COVID.
Immediately after COVID.
Right, immediately after COVID.
And I think you'll see that once we're not embargoed. But, you know, again, it's all relative to what? So again, I think when you, out of the 5 years, we've dropped the COVID year. That's it. We've gained every other year. So, but how much have we gained? It's been incremental, right? So first year it was 5%. You know, the second year we didn't have a gain because there wasn't a test. You know, so it is, again, you have to put something in place as a goal. That's all it is a goal. But I don't, it's just like a sports analogy. You know, your goal may be to win the game, but does that mean by 1 point? No. You want to win the game by 60 if you can. So that's the attitude that everybody in this room has, is what is the best we can do for our students? What is the most we can pull out of them? And I think that's what we have to focus on. Just because a piece of paper says, well, you're only planning on increasing 3% every year, that doesn't mean that's what's really going on. But we have to have something in place to be able to measure against.
So, for one, I spent a ton of time digging into this data that was publicly available on the State Department's website, and we are basically, their measurement has changed, right? So if you include the way they're measuring is different. So meets and exceeds means something different than it did, I can't remember, 4, 5, 6 years ago?
2015, I think is when it changed, 14, 15.
Yeah, so they changed the way that they're measuring it, and they're changed their language. So basically, the school report card now says meets and exceeds is a third, but if you actually bring in that, like, what's the? Approaching, thank you. I haven't looked at this data in a couple of months, so I can't remember all the words, but if you include approaching, we're basically exactly where we were when my son started 12 years ago. I mean, we haven't really changed. I mean, and that's not necessarily good either, but it's basically, even through COVID and everything, we're basically about where we've always been.
So
it's not really that we've decreased and we're not accepting a third. It's literally that they changed the bar. So you have to be careful when you're looking at that number and put it in context. That's my one comment. And the other is, you do have to be realistic. If you are to, there is a fine line between aspirational and realistic, right? Because I agree with you 100%, we need to be aspirational, but I don't think that putting it all into those academic achievement test scores is your aspiration, needs to be the main focus. Because I think if you put, I've seen it happen, we've all had our kids in the district, you make that test score too aspirational, then that's where the effort goes, is to getting that test score up. And what I want to see is the whole child have success, not just raise our test scores. And I feel like if we can focus on the whole child, hopefully those test scores come along. So again, it goes back to my comment before about student success. I want to see it rounded out more and looking at the whole child. And I think that along with what we are saying here with the 2% is a good place to start. And this is a living document, and you have committed, I know we talked about in the committee, you have committed to reviewing this annually. So, in a year, we'll have new information. There's a lot of needs assessment going on in here as your first step. In a year, there'll be a lot of new data we can look at, hopefully, and really, take it to a next level.
That last point about the test metric is, back in 2013, the state meets and exceeds was at 73%. The state's nowhere near that now.
They're closer to where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
But the only
30-something or
thing,
40.
that changed is you now have approaches that used to be included in meets and exceeds.
So are you saying that we didn't necessarily gain, they just came down? I think
Everybody
they-
came down.
the whole
No,
state-
everybody came down because they changed the way
Because
they were measuring
they
it.
changed the way meets and exceeds is established. So we're not like, we haven't been falling. It's that the state said at one time, this is meets and exceeds, and it was at 73%. Well, the state's nowhere near that now because it's not the same metric that says meets and exceeds. So they basically changed how that's calculated. So, again, does that mean we don't need to strive to be better? No, that we need to do what we need to do. We need to not worry about what everybody else is doing. We need to worry about what we need to do and what's sitting in front of us, and do the best we can to maximize student success, academically and in other ways. So,
Do we have the academic achievement piece in a work session? Is that August, or we were waiting to be able to talk about the test
we
scores?
have to be able to speak about it because it's still embargoed.
Okay, well, whenever we get to that in a work session, I can share what I found is pretty fascinating, really. The numbers go like this, and then everybody's down here. And it's the state follows, we follow the state like right with the graph. It's pretty interesting how they just really changed the way they were measuring it.
And I think you'll see when that happens, you're going to see a lot of our schools have done some really great things. We don't want to minimize that by saying where we are compared. We want to look at what they did based on what they had in front of them. You're going to see some success stories. And we need to be able to talk about that.
Yeah, to me, it's more important to look at the school, where that school was and where it is now. Like, that different. Anyway, I'll be quiet. We'll talk about that in a work session sometime.
Just one other point, there's a big portion of the strategic plan is outlined for our gifted and talented program. Do you want to speak a little bit to where we have plans
Yeah.
for that?
Yep.
Because that seems to be a huge part of the plan that
It
I
has
haven't
been.
seen in before.
And so, we've, in our elementary level especially, we've not been able to put a lot of resources or a lot of effort towards our GT. Again, a lot of districts have been in the same boat because of the resources and how they've changed that. In our middle and high schools, a lot of the GT is taken care of through honors classes and AP classes, IB, dual enrollment, those types of things. That's where a lot wind up heading. But in our elementary level, we really don't have as much as we should for our GT students. And so I on purpose put an emphasis on that in the strategic plan because the principals have said, we really need something. We need something to be able to offer our students. And again, we're doing the same thing that a lot of districts are doing, which is coming up with ways to incorporate more rigor and more types of strategies for those students. But that's why at the end of last year in our budget process, we talked a little bit about a pull-out program, potentially like we used to do in the district a while back. And being able to have more of a focus on opportunities for GT students to have more contact. And also ways on identifying our GT students. Because again, if you don't have a program that's really focused on those students, then you don't tend to focus on identification as much either. So I'm really hoping we can see a new plan for that by the end of this year.
Maybe we can have during a work session, we can have a more in-depth discussion
Sure.
about programming and how, in the midst of what we're budgeting for everything else, how we incorporate that in, because I mean, that program is sorely missing at the elementary school level.
And let me just, I have one more comment, I hate to keep belaboring it, but on the strategic plan, I'm not discounting anything that our people are doing or the talent that we've got. I think we've got a lot of talent. I've said this to you before in one-on-one conversations. I just feel like we don't allow our people enough autonomy sometimes from the lower level administrative positions. I'm referring to principals, teachers, etc., to allow them to really do what they're trained to do. I know we have standards, okay, I follow that. I know there's certain things that have been tried, we want to implement programs, but sometimes I feel like we force our schools and our principals to all follow the same thing. I told you this too, and I may be totally wrong, but when we talk about strategic planning, we talk about how we do things, and I'm not saying what we've done hasn't worked, okay, so you're saying we're making strides. I feel like we can make greater strides if we let our administrative team be more of a support role, less of a, don't take this the wrong way, a dictatorship, because these are the programs we're putting in, we got to make sure they're done and implemented. That might not be right for each and every school and each and every student and teacher. I don't know if you can do it, but we've had a conversation on schools. If we could back up a little bit, and maybe you already do this, I don't know, but if you listen to the principals, and I'm sure you do, but back up and take the cuffs off, you know what we've got to do, you know we've got certain standards, make it happen in your school. Pull your group together, your teachers, get their support, let's do this, let's make it happen. And back here in administration, how do we step in here and support what you're doing? It's different than what she's doing or he's doing over at that school, because it's different demographics, different location, just a ton of different things, but that principal that has been there and lives it and breathes it and has for years, and has been other places and has seen what works and doesn't work, can you cut them loose a little bit? I don't know. I'm not asking for an answer.
Yeah.
I'm asking you to consider that when you look at strategic planning. If it isn't blowing it out of the water, why don't we step back and try an experiment?
Right.
I hate to say it, we don't have a whole lot to lose, and let these administrators do their job, and let their teachers do their job, how they're going to communicate and get those kids to understand, which might be different than what we're forcing, so to speak. When I say force, it's a program that we think is successful, we're trying to put it in, but it might not be working there.
Yeah.
So back up, and let's say, what can we do for each of y'all to help you do it? We're gonna sit back here and be here to help you. I'm going to say that and we'll leave it at that and give that some thought. I said it publicly because I'd like for our administrators to hear that and understand that. Y'all get together, have a powwow, how can we make this happen? I think together there's a ton of talent. I think you can make a lot of more change with the less restrictive guidance and governance. That's it, done with all this.
Can I just make one small comment? I promise I'll make it a short one. I just want to say, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, okay, right? But as a parent, I want to know, regardless of what school my child goes to, that they're getting the same education as all the other kids in the district. And I feel like there's a fine line, right, between giving them autonomy and providing guidance so that we have consistency across our district. Because we want to make sure that every student in the district is getting an equal opportunity to have the same education.
And I can respect that, and that's great for you. That was a personal thing.
Right, and I'm
I don't
just
really
being
care. It's
the other
like in the
side.
private sector, you perform and you tend to do well. What are they doing over there? I want to go there. It's kind of like, I want to go to that school. Well, maybe what they're implementing is the way to go. So I'm different. I don't want mine to get the same thing they're getting over there because we're outperforming now. That's just a personal preference. So again, yeah, I want to make sure they're getting the right thing. They've got standards. They've got to teach to a certain standard. How they get there, do you really want to dictate how every one of those principals and their talent get there? That's all I'm saying.
Right.
I don't
I
want to
understand.
dictate how they get there.
I'm just providing
And I think
another
And it's
perspective.
semantics, to your point, standards, we have to follow the law.
Without a doubt.
We have to teach standards.
Not-
So that's, it's semantics, I think, a little bit, where no matter what, every school in South Carolina has to teach the standards.
But
they-
how you get there and how
Correct.
they get there,
Correct.
leave it a little bit up to them. So I agree 100%. Yeah, I want to make sure they're getting a great education and equal. I don't know about equal. I just want to get them educated.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I think a lot of the restriction comes from the restriction sometimes we place on them. I don't know how you back off. It's not an overnight thing. It's a
Right.
gradual thing. You got to get comfortable with one another and confidence in one another and see what happens.
And there's a fine line between accountability and the freedom that you're talking about, right? Because again, you've got a veteran teacher that may have all the tools in the toolbox. They're going to be able to know how to do a lot more. You got a brand new teacher, they're desperate for somebody to tell them, how do I do this? What do I do? What are the steps I need to take? So, you really, we have this conversation every month in principals meetings as far as what is that magic fine line on how to, turn loose that creativity, but at the same time make sure that students are getting what they need, right?
The basics.
Even in the same building, right? Because you don't want that situation where, two teachers, everybody's super happy because of the great job they're doing, and the other one's a brand new teacher, they've fallen behind.
That's rogue. I'm not saying that. I'm not referring. I don't mean that you're taking it a little too far. Yes,
Yeah.
without a doubt, you got to have
I'm just talking
parameters.
semantics, yeah.
But when you've got long-term teachers and you got a
Yeah.
young teacher with energy and drive, I'm going to watch that when she's performing. What are you doing? I'm going to get with her. Well, this person's going to want to share it. I would think. Anyway, that's just maybe hypothetical and maybe just dreaming, but just consider it.
But we are all after the same thing.
Yeah.
We are.
All right, Charles, you got a comment?
The only thing I would say is, you have to remember that the public sector is totally different than education.
The private sector,
The private sector is totally different.
without a doubt.
And I think we make the mistake when we start to equate one with the other. We start coming up with ideas based on what's happening in the private sector. And I hear this consistently in here, and I don't think it's fair. It's not fair to our employees. It's because they are in a box, and they are locked into that box. They don't have that flexibility. They have some flexibility, that's true. But that flexibility is within a certain parameter. And we keep talking about, we need to do the same way that plants do it, the same way that the banking does it, the same way that other people do it. It doesn't work that way. And the other thing I think is we need to all understand that we are teaching children that come from different backgrounds, different cultural differences, parental differences, and you've got to meet that child where that child is and take that child the way you want that child to be.
Hence the
And
autonomy.
that's not always,
Hence the autonomy. That was the whole point of that. Exactly, totally agree 100%. Hence the autonomy, they're all different, allow them to do that. You can't teach them all the same. That was the point of my entire
But what
dissertation.
you're saying though, Jamie, you want them to teach to a test.
That's not at all what I said.
I mean, you're not coming out and using those terms, but that in essence is what you're saying.
No, I said what I meant to
Because at the
say.
end of the day, the test score is what's going to determine success.
It's all about how you get there, Charles, is what my comment was.
So I'm gonna take the child along, but the child doesn't get the information, doesn't retain the information, but because I got a end of the course test or whatever the case may be, that child's gonna get left.
Warren?
Okay. You got your new teachers and you got your old teachers. Well, there's a lot you learn from all the teachers. The new one may have some great ideas, can help the older teacher, and vice versa. I mean, you gotta make them feel like they're appreciated and wanted, and that's the principal's job. We can, you know, if you don't have your faculty behind you, you're not gonna be successful. I don't care what you're doing. And that's in any business or whatever. If your leaders don't appreciate what you've got, you're not gonna be successful. And it's a team effort from top to bottom, no doubt about it. So we need to all get on this same team, make this thing work. It's, I mean, we're not where we wanna be by any means. And Jamie's right. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get to the end. And one teacher may have one way that works great. And if she does, tell this other teacher. And everybody can get on the same boat. And so it's up to us as individuals, as board members, as principals, superintendent, everybody in this room. It's up to us to make this work, or help make sure they have the right tools to make it work. And until we do that, we're gonna keep having problems. But we've got great teachers in this district, and we need to support them. And if we do that, I think we'll be fine. And like I said, we aren't where we want to be, but we've got to take some steps to get there. I mean, we can put 70% of them we want to pass. Well, and that's great. I would love to see that. But realistically, that's not going to happen right away. But we can't accept mediocrity either. And poverty is no excuse for not being successful. So let's all get on the same boat. Let's make this happen. And I think we'll be fine. Thank you.
Before anybody says anything else, the next person that says something will be the chair of the committee on strategic plan from the board, and the next person that says something will be the vice chair. Do we have any further comments? All right, we're calling for a vote. All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? And we're moving forward. And we don't have a committee yet. Next time I'm gonna get a committee.
I was tempted to just say.
All right,
I was tempted to
Dr.
say.
Newman, we're up to superintendent's update.
So, let's talk about the positives that are going on. Start of the school, 2 weeks in, and a Monday. But I think, by all accounts, we had a great first week. Very smooth start. Had some hiccups with transportation, no fault of Tony Thomas and his department and what they were doing. They did a great job. It all comes down to when people register, because we can't put everybody on a bus if they register late. And we have emphasized that over and over to our parents. So I feel like we had a much better response to our registration process. And kudos to Tony Thomas and his group, because week 2 they were all on buses, and he made a commitment, and so they've done a great job taking care of that. Our principals, our teachers were incredibly prepared for our kids, for our parent nights, for our teachers, and welcoming them back, and our students. So it's really been a very good start to the school year. And I wish the temperature was a little bit less. That would help our HVAC systems right now, because they are huffing and puffing. And I feel for all of our principals and the folks in your buildings. I know every one of you probably have some spots that are difficult, but other than having to make sure that we watch out for the heat index with our kids, it has been very good. Good start to the school year. Of course, we're in map testing already, so I know we like to talk about a lot of things, but we're in the map window right now. So that whole part is that assessment piece to see where our students are, so we can start gauging what do we have in front of us and what can we do with them, right? So that process has started. That's not been lost in the start of the school year. And that map testing has a lot to do with the strategies that our teachers are using for those new students that are sitting in front of them, because they're different every year, right? You get different students in front of you. They have different levels, and you have to do, to all of our point, you have to do everything you can to help those students meet their needs where they are. That's where this process starts. How about a little high school football? Can we talk about high school football? Because that's a positive. That brings our communities together. Look, we have all kinds of challenges. I mean, it's not hard to look where challenges are. But we also have a lot of positives. And when you talk about, if you look around the country and some of the things that are going on, to be in an area of the country where we can talk about high school football and the way it brings communities together, it's not just about athletics. It's about community. It's about people being together. It's about connecting with our teachers and our other staff in an environment that's not in a classroom. And so it's exciting and encouraging. In fact, I think every one of our high school football teams has a W in their jamborees that they've played in. So that's encouraging. Every one of our football teams has a W in jamborees that they've played in. Hadn't been able to say that in the past. So that's a big deal. We hope that translates into wins on week 1. But I'm hearing very encouraging things about our programs. And of course, all you have to do is hang out here at about 4:30 and listen to what the band's doing next door, because they got it going on. And they do up in Hartsville as well, and they do down in Lamar. So that's what I wanted to talk about, is there's a really good feeling about the start of a school year and what that represents to our families and what that represents to all of us. Again, I'll acknowledge the challenges, but I also want to be able to acknowledge we're in a pretty great part of the country to be right now, to be talking about educating our students, but also to be talking about other things that we do with our students in our community. That's my superintendent's update.
All right, that brings us on around to board member input. Ms. Gore.
You can always raise your hand. She'll acknowledge you.
I would just like to thank everyone for a great school year starting with. I'm looking at your new mission statement to empower the student, to educate, empower, and prepare. That's very important. And I understand that the children are not where they need to be right now, but we do have a reality of a starting point. And if you can start, you can build upon that start. I understand there might be teachers that may have creativity, but you got to have accountability. You can't go on the job and do what you want to do and how you want to do it, regardless of what you think about it. We all have to have an order, have the state law that we have to follow. And every teacher and every one of us, including us, we all are accountable to somebody, to someone. And we are really accountable to that child, to give them the right education that they need to help them become an adult. So we need to work together, like Mr. Wayne Jeffrey said. We need to all work together. And I think so far that we're off to a good start. It's not perfect, but it's a good start. And I think that we're going to have more community involvement in the school. Community involvement helps the child as well.
because you have people cheering for them. They got cheerleaders, their families, other students, they're cheering for them. They want their children to be successful. They don't want us to sit up here make all kind of rules and regulations or put them in place where they can't meet and give them high standards. I'm not saying be lax on it, but I'm saying let's be real. Let's give them an opportunity to grow. Because if we are hard on kids, sometimes we put too many expectations on them, they may fail. But if we are realistic and we are working toward goals, and I think this strategic plan is good, it's a very good start. I think that, and every year we can look at where these children are. We can see some milestones. And I like the total success of a child that's successful completely. That he has good social skills as well as educational skills. And I'm also thinking, I've been watching Miss King here. And I know that she has a lot of responsibility on her in putting this curriculum together. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot to do this. I'm quiet, I don't say anything, but I research as well. And I'm looking at some of the scores. I'm looking at some, and I believe, I don't know for sure, that there's going to be some milestones for some children that the scores have improved. That's just my gut feeling. I haven't talked to Dr. Newman or anybody, but if we are taking the lead, and she's setting the curriculum up based on what the state says, then we're going to have to do we are going to get some improvement in some of these children. And when Dr. Pulaski was here, and she went and she talked to the teachers, she gave them an insight on some things that they didn't really know about the students that they teach. And I thought that when she was going to the different schools and talking to the principals and the teachers, that was a very good thing for the teachers. Because sometimes you have to know what you're working with. You have to see the child and see the needs of that child. Every child in your classroom will not have the same need. They're going to have different needs. But you're going to be able to have the wisdom to be able to meet that child where he is or she is, so that they can grow and they can become educated. No child is born dumb. We have to pour in them and put in them what they need to be successful. So I think that strategic plan is a good plan. And I think that Dr. Newman next year this time, when we talk about it, I hope we have some good results on what has taken place in these children's lives. And I just like the fact that that you're really looking at the child, Dr. Newman, in a whole picture. I really like that now. You're really looking at that child in a whole picture. You're not just looking at when he comes to school, but you're looking at what that child has to deal with before he gets here. That's the only way we can be able to work with them and get them where they need to be. You know, so I believe in order. I believe, in accountability. I think that we all have accountability to these children, because that's what we're here for. That's the oath we took. That's the profession you choose, that you was going to help these children. And if you're in your classroom, you need to be able to meet that child right where he is or she is. And I think that we're going to do some great things this year. I'm hoping we do some great things this year. We have some great new principals in place. I think Mr. Schuler going to do a good job. I feel he's going to do his job. I feel Ms. Brown is going to do a good job at DCSI. I feel Ms. Keel's going to do a good job. I just feel that we made some good decisions. Now we just need to sit back and let it work. It's going to work out. I think good decisions have been made. And we're going to sit back and we're going to pray that they all work out. We're going to pray that these children become total students. total students. Not just academic, not just football, not just the band, but they become total sufficient students that they can strive and do well in life. That's what we're looking for. That's what I'm asking for. And that's what I'm wanting accountability for. If you don't want to do the job, don't take it. But if you got, and see, it's more than teaching school than just sitting up in a classroom. You got to have a love for it. You got to want to do this thing. It got to be a passion about what you do. Cause, and I believe we're gonna be just fine. And I think the school district, it started off in a good path, and I think that we got good leadership in place. We got good area superintendents in place, administrative staff, and I believe that I'm gonna look for the good. I'm gonna look for the good. I'm gonna look for the good in everything until I see something different.
Ms. Gore, you found a way around my comment of being a committee chair. to board member input. Okay. I'm gonna catch you on that one next time.
Okay.
Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Ooh, that's a hard one to follow up.
You don't have to try.
Oh, no,
Not
you ain't gonna worry about it.
You wanna be vice chair?
No. All I want to say is you welcome everyone back. I know staff members, quite a few, has already seen me throughout the year. The ones that haven't seen me yet, don't worry. I'm still making my rounds. Your students, just glad to have them back. Today started with 3 of them being in. I will say, the first day of school, I made quite a few rounds. I remember, I sent you a text and I called Dr. Newman about it. In fact, Miss King saw me quite a few times. There for a minute, I thought she was following me. No, I will say, all the schools I was able to hit on that first day, it was nothing but smiling faces, staff and students. Everybody excited to be back. Nothing but tons and tons of motivation. I'd like to see that motivation throughout the school year. I know we've got plenty of little small breaks here and there for people to take little breathers and everything else, but once we come back from those breaks, let's hit the ground running just like it was day one. That right there, that made me glad to be a board member, walking through, seeing those schools the way they were. That's it.
All right. Mr. Morphus. We've got a chair and a vice chair. You won't be on the committee.
Mr. Douglas, on your budget, we'll have a line item here, virtual. We don't have a virtual where you have that elementary, high school, and so forth on the budget here. We don't show the virtual.
Right, because that's being funded through, I think it's under the ESSER, that's where you're gonna see that. It's under ESSER.
But when ESSER, so that's just
There would be,
incorporated.
there isn't a function. It would be, the high school teachers would be under
That's
high
right,
school
and
and
elementary
middle school,
also.
but
So-
it is right now funded under ESSER.
Right, so what happens, my question is, we've been going back and forth on this virtual thing. Let me back up. Sorry, enrollment again, where do you think we are? Just for the first of the year, down a bit. from
The whole district
Yep.
looks like about 80 students less total.
So we
across the
continue to
district.
go down, regardless, not us, it is what it is. So we attribute some to homeschool, some to virtual, COVID, what do people do from that point? So my question is, we've been discussing the virtual and what we do and how do we do it, what's the best way? We feel we need to offer as an alternative, et cetera. Are there better ways of doing it, et cetera? How's the money spent? So I guess the question about how many students and about what is that budget? And you may not have that off the top of your head, maybe something you get to me or something.
I can, I think we have about 150 students.
150, and if we could just follow up with a budget item
Sure.
on that, just because, again, we've been discussing it. And, my way of doing it, of course, I think y'all beat that down, you can't quite do that. But I do think there are probably other ways to be more effective, less costly. The conversation could be had. Anyway, and then you responded, I think, to us on the busing is not we have no say in that. That is state. So with that, what is the conversation about the electric? And the conversation with the money that's been allocated, and then of course, where does that stand? How does that impact us? And then they say it's less maintenance. I don't know about that, but if that were the case, then can that be money that's diverted over to salaries where you get, a lot of different things can play, but it all depends on where does that stand with all that so-called money.
And so we, from the electric bus standpoint, we talked a little bit about this back in the spring. We were allocated to receive 16 electric buses in the first wave. This is coming from the federal government. Unfortunately, that's been pushed back. And I think our allocation was based on a state allocation as well, so it's not unique to Darlington County. The state department runs the transportation system in South Carolina.
They kind of decide where the buses go, who gets what.
They do. But I think there's a lot of positives that could come from that.
I thought it was interesting, interesting to see if it is true that the maintenance is less and that's less money, can that money be diverted since we're having such a struggle to get bus drivers that we do, anyway, just thought.
I think so.
Going forward.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can just follow up on the virtual thing.
Sure.
And again, work session item, I would rather not hear, but a work session where we can have some conversation with, the head of it to beat this around and see what other options are there. How can we do better? How can we, performance, when we talk about what is performance relative to here, numbers relative, budget relative, number of people, et cetera, what does it take? What other options are there?
Good. Ms. Thompson? I already said a lot tonight, so I don't have a whole lot, but just the beginning of the school year, I don't know, I think several of us have touched on it, that it's, it's a new opportunity every year, right? It's exciting time when you start the school year because it's like a fresh start. There aren't, when you get out and be an adult and you got a job year-round, you don't get those fresh starts. So I think it's great for the kids. I know the kids get excited. As a parent, I get excited, that beginning of the school year excitement. And so I really love, I think the strategic plan is a really good thing if we can make it, a living document that we're actually utilizing and to help keep us focused and keep us, keep that motivation going. And I'm really excited to see sort of where it goes over the next 5 years and to be a part of that. And I'll gladly be a committee chair if I have to be, if it means, doing the things. So if it means supporting our schools and helping you guys live the strategic plan, that's great. So I hope that document can be a document that isn't just something that sits on a shelf and that we can live. And then also I'm sort of to your point, I'm excited and apprehensive, whatever, a little bit of everything, to tackle this budget thing so that we can make sure that we're, that's our responsibility as a board to figure that out. And I think that's incredibly important for us to figure out how we're going to continue to support these things that we found with the ESSER money that are working well, and making sure that we can continue to support our schools and have those positions in place and that money in place. And it's going to having to make some difficult decisions to do that, but I think it's incredibly important, and I'm looking forward to getting started. And thank you all the principals here for doing what you do and getting us off to a good start for the school year. I appreciate all the work you did over the summer as well. So, thank you. That's all. That's all I've got.
We do have a real good school district here, guys. I know we focus a lot of times on the negative, but we have a lot of good things going on too, and I think we can build on what we have, and we should. So, and we will. And I got a lot of confidence in Dr. Newman and all our principals and staff, and I think if we get behind them and stay behind them, we will be fine. One thing I'd like to bring up, y'all know it's hot, is what out there. Some of these playgrounds we have, they don't have canopies or sails or whatever. And if they've got, I know some PTOs have raised money to buy sails or whatever you want to call them, canopies. We need to help them get them up so they can use them. These kids are out there in 110-degree heat index, and they shouldn't have to be, they ought to have some shade. So if we've got the canopies or sails or whatever, let's help them get them up. I mean, I know I've talked to some maintenance people about that, and nothing's been done yet, and that's been a couple months ago. So it's time we do it. But, you know, we're gonna wait another month or two, it'll be winter time, you won't need them. So let's do it. And how about our vacancies? Where are we there?
23 today. All those are
23?
filled with the best subs in the business. Those 23 are. About half of those are certified subs. So
So you
Not-
feel
not too
pretty
bad.
good where we are?
Yes,
I mean, I
sir.
know you'd like to have 0, but
that's right.
compared to last year, where are we?
That's about twice as good as we were this time last year.
On that topic though, also with the teachers, I noticed, and we've got a lot of what is it called now?
Teach for tomorrow.
Teach for Tomorrow, not Teach for America,
Yeah.
Teach for Tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a lot. The concern is those that don't pass the alternative route, that puts added pressure. I'm sure you're still looking, but is that not added pressure if they don't? What kind of time frame do they have to meet the requirements?
We
for
put them
certification?
on a timeline as they come on. So it's typically a year they have to at least earn the credential or show progress towards the credential. And this year, Dr. Newman asked we put a cohort together to support them. So we're helping them with coursework, monthly classes, study materials to ensure that they do earn that credential.
And a shadow is like the
Special
teacher-
needs shadow.
Is it like a teacher assistant?
Yeah,
in the-
that is just with,
I'm just trying to make sure I
Special
understood there was
needs
a tremendous amount.
I'm glad you saw that. I mean, if I could comment real quick.
Yeah.
I on purpose wanted you to see the amount of alternative certification
miss it.
teachers, right? Because when we say we only have 23 vacancies, we're in pretty good shape compared to other districts, but there's a huge teacher shortage out there. And those people are in an alternative program for a reason, right? Because there's no teachers to put in their place right now. So it was important for you as a board to see, we're filling positions, and our principals are filling positions, but it's not the same as what it was. And so, as Mr. Miller mentioned, you know, with our induction teachers that come out fresh out of college, we have a year-long program that we support them with. Our other alternative certification programs, there's nothing there for them, you know, officially to support them. So we recognize, hey, they need the same support because it may be a career changer, but they've never taught in a classroom before. So it's important that we pair them up with mentors, that we put programs together that help them. But I also made the decision to let you all see there's a teacher shortage. We don't have certified teachers to put in those positions, so we're having to create our own. And as our principals know, a lot of times it works out. Sometimes it doesn't.
But, and we've known that, and that's what our argument at this board and every other board in the country probably has been, that they're gonna, if they can't recognize, we've seen teacher shortage coming on for years, because you don't compensate, you don't take care, it's just on and on. So my argument for the autonomy is give them something, you know, quit, again, it's releasing some of the pressures. We can't dictate the money, that's gotta be a federal level thing, but at some point you would hope they would recognize, and I don't know what you do, how you move it up, but it's gonna have to come from them. I mean, it's just only gonna get worse.
You're up.
You pass.
The only two things. One is I want to thank Mr. Schuler for following through with a conversation we've had for the last couple of board meetings about Hartsville High in the stadium. The issue that was raised about the stadium has been, I think, addressed.
You want grass boxes?
Yes.
Yes,
It
indeed.
looks better.
Yes,
So
indeed.
we should not have that conversation going forward, but I hope. But I probably want to thank Mr. Schuler and his staff for doing that, because they did, I think they did a good job. I do have some concerns about the equipment in there and the maintenance of that equipment, as well as, I think those locks ought to be changed. Because as you know, if you had turnover, locks are everywhere, and everybody does not have, need to have access, in my opinion, to that room, as well as the weight room for that matter. The other thing is, we lost this past weekend a very supportive person for public education in South Carolina, and that was Senator John Scott. And I would ask that at some point during your time of freedom, being free, that you would offer a moment of prayer for John's family during this time of his bereavement, because John was really a champion for public education in South Carolina. That's it.
Mr. Miller, you're up. These new shadow positions, I mean, we've got like 6 new shadow positions. I mean, are these that kids that have just come into the system, or what is the approval process? How do kids?
So a little bit of both. Some of them are new to the district, and so if they come to us with an IEP,
Okay.
and they have a shadow in the IEP, we have to, by law,
Right.
honor that. Some of them, if you remember in the budget, we approved some new positions for special education, remember, because of the caseloads. So those caseloads were teachers, but they were also some other positions, auxiliary positions. And then some were identified last year. They were in the budget for last year, but we were never able to hire somebody. We might have had a Kelly Services temporary person with them that were in place, you know, but we weren't able to hire until now. So, but there's
Are they full-time?
They are.
They're full-time employees?
They are, yes.
So they're there the
Yeah,
entire school
yeah.
day? Okay.
Yeah, and there is as our principals know, there's a strict process that we go through in order to approve a shadow, because, you know, that once you commit to that, that's in an IEP, and so that's law. So, but yeah, I had the same conversation. I was like, wow, there's a lot of shadows on this list. And are these, in fact, I asked Mr. Miller, let's pull the paperwork and make sure all of these have been approved. They have to have data, by the way, so if they don't have a shadow with them, there's a process that we go through, which is the RTI process, to establish data. So data has to support them having a shadow as well. But I just think it's a sign of the times that we have more of our students are being identified and more of them are needing somebody with them.
Okay, and then the other question, what kind of costs do these teachers for tomorrow, what kind of costs do they incur to go through that program? Just,
So there's an initial registration fee, which is about $400, and that's on them
Okay.
for buy-in. And then it's a $4,000 tuition that we pick up
so we're picking up that tuition?
Correct.
Okay.
with our
How-
rural recruitment grant that we receive every year.
Okay, so we're paying for that out of a grant? Okay. So the 4,000 completes the program though, so there's no, did they have to finish a term of service with us? I mean, the $4,000?
I believe our agreement with them, they agreed to teach with us for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. I'll have
Okay.
to look at that, but there's a retainer that we put into the agreement.
Because, man, I'd hate us to pay for them and keep it.
That's right.
And they go-
And then they leave, I mean, so it
Yeah, so
secures
it's a
what we
commitment.
get back for that.
Mhm.
All right, that takes care of that then. All right, anybody think else? All right,
Madam Chair, I will add in, about the shadows. A few schools I've visited, I always visit the exceptional ed classes.
right.
And those teachers, they are highly grateful to have those district
Oh, I'm
personnel
sure
there.
they are.
I forgot to mention that earlier.
Okay, all right, personnel actions. Do we have a motion to approve all these personnel actions?
I know it is. You're approved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And if we could get a motion to move into executive session.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we move into executive session for
personnel matters, recommendations of terminations, hires, and/or transfers, and contractual matters.
All in favor? Opposed? We'll head into executive. back out of executive session. No actions were taken during executive session, no motions were made. That's it. And so we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you.